I'm Jeremy. Today is day 254 of reading. Today we're reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. We're on page 264. Wait, am I? Yep, I am. Bills, but found he had too much hair. The look didn't really suit Hagrid at all. For a moment, Hermione goggled at him, then obviously decided not to comment. She said, where are the Scroots? Out by the pumpkin patch, said Hagrid happily. They're getting massive. Must be nearly 3 foot long now. Only trouble is they've started killing each other. Oh no, really? Said Hermione, shooting a repressive look at Ron, who was staring at Hagrid's odd hairstyle, had just opened his mouth to say something about it. Yeah, said Hagrid sadly. It's okay, though. I've got them in separate boxes now. Still got about 20. Well, that's lucky, said Ron. Hagrid missed the sarcasm. Hagrid's cabin comprised of a single room, in one corner which was a gigantic bed covered in patchwork quilt. A similarly enormous wooden table and chairs stood in front of the fire beneath the quantity of cured hams and dead birds hanging from the ceiling. They sat down at the table while Hagrid started to make tea, and was soon immersed in yet more discussion of the Triwizard Tournament. Hagrid seemed quite as excited about it as they were. You wait, he said, grinning. You just wait. You're going to see some stuff you've never seen before. First task. But I'm not supposed to say. Go on, Hagrid, Harry, Ron, and Hermione urged him, but he just shook his head, grinning. I don't want to spoil it for you, said Hagrid, but it's going to be spectacular, I'll tell you that. Them champions are going to have to work cut out. Never thought I lived to see the Triwizard Tournament played again. They ended up having lunch with Hagrid, though they didn't eat much. Hagrid had made what he said was a beef casserole, but after Hermione unearthed a large talon in hers, Harry, and Ron rather lost their appetites. However, they enjoyed themselves trying to make Hagrid tell them what the tasks in the tournament were going to be, speculating which of the entrants were likely to be selected as champions, and wondering whether Fred and George were beardless yet. A light rain had started to fall by mid-afternoon. It was very cozy sitting by the fire, listening to the gentle patter of the drop on the window, watching Hagrid darning his socks and arguing with Hermione about house-elves, for he flatly refused to join SPEW when she showed him her badges. It'd be doing him an unkindness, Hermione, she said gravely, threading a massive bone needle with thick yellow yarn. It's in their nature to look for humans. That's what they like, see? You'd be making them unhappy to take away their work, and insulting them if you tried to pay them. But Harry said Dobby free, and he was over the moon about it, said Hermione, and we heard he's asking for wages now. Yeah, well, you got weirdos in every breed. I'm not saying there isn't the odd elf who'd take freedom, but you'll never persuade most of them to do it. No, nothing doing, Hermione. Hermione looked very cross indeed and stuffed her box of badges back into her cloak pocket. By 5:30, it was growing dark, and Ron and Harry and Hermione decided it was time to get back to the castle for the Halloween feast, and most importantly, the announcement of the school champions. I've honestly kind of forgotten this part. It's gonna be exciting. Spoiler alert, you guys already know why it's called Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'll come with you, said Hagrid, putting away his darning. Just give us a sec. Hagrid got up, went across to the chest of drawers beside his bed, and began searching for something inside it. They didn't pay too much attention until a truly horrible smell reached their nostrils. Coughing, Ron asked, Hagrid, what's that? Said Hagrid, turning around with a large bottle in his hand. Don't you like it? Is that aftershave? Said Hermione in a slightly choked voice. Eau de Cologne, Hagrid muttered. He was blushing. Maybe it's a bit too much," he said gruffly. "I'll take it off. Hang on." He stumped out of the cabin, and they saw him washing himself vigorously in the water barrel outside the window. "Eau de Cologne?" said Hermione in amazement. "Hagrid? And what's with the hair in the suit?" said Harry in an undertone. "Look," said Ron suddenly, pointing out of the window. Hagrid had just straightened up and turned round. If he had been blushing before, it was nothing to what he was doing now. Getting to their feet very cautiously so that Hagrid wouldn't spot them, Harry, Ron, and Hermione peered through the window and saw that Madame Maxime and the Bucksbannen students had just emerged from their carriage, clearly about to set off for the feast too. They couldn't hear what Hagrid was saying, but he was talking to Madame Maxime with rapt, misty-eyed expression Harry had ever seen him wear once before, when he had been looking at the baby dragon, Norbert. "He's going up to the castle with her," said Hermione indignantly. "I thought he was waiting for us." Without so much as a backward glance at the cabin, Hagrid was trudging off up the grounds with Madame Maxime. The Bucksbannen students followed in their wake, jogging to keep up with their enormous strides. "He fancies her," said Ron incredulously. "Well, if they end up having children, they'll be setting a world record. Bet any baby of theirs would weigh about a ton." They let themselves out of the cabin and shut the door behind them. It was surprisingly dark outside. Drawing their cloaks more closely around themselves, they set off up the sloping lawns. "Ooh, it's them! Look!" Hermione whispered. A Durmstrang party was walking up toward the castle from the lake. Victor Crumb was walking side by side with Karkaroff, and the other Durmstrang students were straggling along behind them. Ron watched Crumb excitedly, but Crumb did not look around as he reached the front doors a little ahead of Hermione, Ron, and Harry, and proceeded through them. When they entered the candlelit great hall, it was almost full. The Goblet of Fire had been moved. It was now standing in front of Dumbledore's empty chair at the teacher's table. Fred and George, clean-shaven again, seemed to have taken their disappointment fairly well. "Hope it's Angelina," said Fred, Harry, and Ron, and Hermione sat down. "So do I," said Hermione breathlessly. "Well, we'll soon know." The Halloween feast seemed to take not much longer than usual, perhaps because it was their second feast in 2 days. Harry didn't seem to fancy the extravagantly prepared food as much he would have normally. Like everyone else in the hall, judging by the constantly craning necks, the impatient expressions on every face, the fidgeting, and the standing up to see whether Dumbledore had finished eating yet, Harry simply wanted the plates to clear and to hear who had been selected as champions. At long last, the golden plates returned to their original spotless state. There was a sharp upswing in the level of noise within the hall, which died away almost instantly as Dumbledore got to his feet. On either side of them, Professor Karkaroff and Madame Maxime looked as tense and expectant as anyone. Luda Bagman was beaming and winking at various students. Mr. Crouch, however, looked quite uninterested, almost bored. "Well, the goblet is almost ready to make its decision," said Dumbledore. "I estimate that it requires 1 more minute. Now, when the champions' names are called, I would ask them please to come up to the top of the hall, walk along the staff table, and go through into the next chamber." He indicated the door behind the staff table, where they would be receiving their first instructions. He took out his wand and gave a great sweeping wave at it. At once, all the candles except those inside the carved pumpkins were extinguished, plunging them into a state of semi-darkness. The Goblet of Fire now shone more brightly than anything in the whole hall. The sparkling bright bluey whiteness of the flames almost painfully on the eyes. Everyone watched, waiting. A few people kept checking their watches. "Any second," Lee Jordan whispered, 2 seats away from Harry. "Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow." Tomorrow we're going to read page 269. I was going to say peace out. So, peace out!